I should study now, but then it's like, अरे बाद में पढ़ लूँगा ना, अभी तो बहुत time है. So how to manage that procrastination?
The psychoanalytic theory of procrastination says that usually, when we know that the outcome is not going to be great, or when you go to social media, you see someone enjoying their lives and you are not. So there is this inner FOMO that, oh, I'm missing out on something. That an average teenager right now is sleeping at least 1 to 1.5 hours lesser than they are supposed to. Self-regulation is the only way you can manage screen times.
Hello everybody, I am Navya Pillai and I study in Udgam School for Children. I am 13 years old and I have a lot of questions and I hope that you have some too. To get the answers, I have Dr. Parth Vaishnav with me. Hello sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Nice to have you.
My parents think that I am addicted to screens, but that is not what I feel. Although somewhere in the back of my mind it is like अब मुझे बंद कर देना चाहिए, अब ज़्यादा हो रहा है, but it is very something new pops up and I keep scrolling for 5-10 minutes and then it turns out to be an hour. So how do I limit my screen time?
That's a very interesting and a hard-hitting first question if you really tell me. Screens were invented with the idea to minimize our problems, stressors and make life easier. And gradually screens are becoming the reasons for most of the problems we as humanity have lately, especially since the last decade. See, a screen is an instrument which gives you some sort of a feedback. Touch screens and we have many things to interact with. And science says that whenever there is an interaction with any system, the human brain is more and more interested in them. Now, it's very interesting how the whole idea of screens and getting people engaged to it was formed in the first place. Because we as humans have a phase of brain that we call as mind wandering. Bhatakta hua man, correct? So they say that 40 to 50% of the times in the day we have a wandering mind. Out of the 50%, most of the times we either sleep, eat, or we engage in the other activities like work, studies related to an age appropriate role. The companies wanted you to utilize maximum time of your day in the product that they made. That was the screens, and that is how they took away the wandering time of your brain, correct? So whenever the mind has to wander away, your brain would want to fixate on something which gives it a feedback, like a screen. And the screen is a gateway to lots of things, right from social media to streaming apps like YouTube, Amazon Prime and many others, or shopping, or some sorts of games playing. Many things are there, correct? So it's not just one thing that screen provides you. Screen is a gateway to a whole new virtual world in the first place. So while your mind is wandering away, the wandering mind picks up something which fixates its attention. So there is divergent focus and then there is convergence of focus. So when the focus diverges, it picks up something like a screen and the focus converges onto it. Now when the focus converges on something, time suddenly becomes shorter, which means you have spent an hour, but to your brain it seems like a few minutes. So when someone just alerts you that, oh, it has been an hour you have been using the phone or the screen, you would say that, oh, I just picked the phone, I just started watching something, or just opened my social media account. So technically the wandering brain from its divergent form, when brought to convergent form, time suddenly shrinks for it. And that is why most of the times when we are on the screen, we'll never realize what is the amount of time spent on it. And again, that is not a lame reason that people give. That is actually a neurobiological construct of how an application is made or how different forms of things on the screen are put in front of you, correct? The second thing is that because when you use your screen, it gives you lots of gratification. For example, you go to social media, you see good likes or comments about something that you have posted. Or when you go to social media, you see someone enjoying their lives and you are not. So there is this inner FOMO that, oh, I'm missing out on something. So first of all, I need to know what the whole world is doing right now. Also on the screen is a surprise package. Every time you go and refresh the feed, some new sort of reel comes down, some new sorts of things pop up from your notification bar or from the application that you are using. So this surprise element is something that the brain likes a lot. And once you fixate onto it, there is constant release of dopamine. It's a chemical of your brain which gives you pleasure, focus, concentration, motivation, and gratification. Correct? Dopamine is a ubiquitous molecule of the brain. But for now, I'll only talk about these topics of dopamine. And because this pleasure is constantly being channelized and you enjoy that, so it's not easy to give up pleasure because human brain loves pleasure. Correct? So once on the screen, it would not be possible, almost impossible for you to get off. And that is why we always explain people that जैसे आप उठने के लिए अलार्म रखते हो, similarly you'll have to come out of this virtual world through an alarm. So there are many applications which track up your screen time. So using such applications to get off them at the right time would be great, because self-regulation is the only way you can manage screen times. The more an external agency like a parent or an authority figure manages it. So let's say that you're getting gratification and pleasure from the screen and somebody shouts, put your phone aside. So that constant flow of pleasure is suddenly broken by pain, because now this is also an insult from someone elderly. Don't you know that you have been on it for 2 hours? Don't you know this is harmful to you? Don't you understand? So a teenage brain especially doesn't like being schooled like this. And so the insult brings even more pain, and jitna bhi pleasure you had got till now is evaporated. So now you want more. So you'll say, I'll take 10 more minutes. And you spend 3 more hours because you have to get the pleasure of the last 2 hours and now something more so that you can leave it. And now a parent again shouts that you have to put it again an insult, injury, pain, we need more pleasure. So this is let's say, a cycle which keeps on repeating in its own self. And the only way to get off screens is self-regulation. So I would not say that technology is bad. I would say that using technology as fast food is great. Just like you don't eat pizzas and Maggi and burger and pasta every day. We should treat screens or use of screens as fast food. Fast food is not bad, but if consumed every day it is bad. Similarly, screens are not bad, but if only screens are consumed, then it's bad, because then the moment you leave the screen and you had just started watching the screen because you're bored of studies, so you wanted some sort of a relief. Now using screens you're even more bored, so you'll never be able to get back to studies. So rather than getting back with better concentration, you get back with even worse concentration, poor focus, agitation, irritability, frustration, disgust. So you can't study. So self-regulation is the way that if you use screens, it's a very good entertainment, recreation, productivity channel, and they should be used in the right way, I guess.
So, I mean, there is a lot of bullying which is also happening in school and in society. I mean, friends don't realize when they say something which might be your insecurity, and it might trigger oh, is it like that? Do I have to change it? So that is it. So how can parents handle like body shaming or the skin tone when people comment on the child's skin tone? So
that's great. So I guess I'll take this question into two parts. Let's first talk about the bullying aspect and then about the body shaming. Bullying. It's a very interesting topic if you ask me, because I have been in schools and colleges where ragging and bullying was a norm. Like ragging nahi hua to aap college mein kaise aa gaye? And if we look at the core psychology, first of all, we all need to understand that the person who bullies others are themselves suffering from some sort of a mental or emotional health condition. Their bullying is a sort of show of power which they are missing in their usual lives. So bullies are exactly those people who come from families which are broken, who come from structures, societies which don't provide them the right amount of love, care, security, and because of lack of everything what they face, they try to impart the same pain to the other students in the school as well, correct? And while they do this, they show extreme confidence, they show extreme show of power and authority over people, and this some way improves their self-esteem, which is missing in their regular lives. So first of all, we all need to understand that people who bully others are themselves suffering from something, correct? The second aspect of it, the person who gets bullied. Now I always explain that you should be a loner if you are a lion, else always hunt as a pack of wolves, correct? As you are young, we all are wolves, and a wolf never hunts as a loner, correct? Until you are not a lion, don't isolate yourself. Because people who usually are alone, who talk less with people, who themselves have self-esteem issues, who have poor confidence, who have not great communication skills because they have issues in their own lives and families, are also the people who are bullied the most, correct?
Yes.
Because responding to a bully in the right way. For example, if you respond a bully with show of more power, more aggression, or bullying them more than what they were doing, then this becomes ego battle between two people who have no egos. And that is why it's a fight. It would be like a fight or a war between two countries who have no armies and still they are fighting, correct? Now, going through the whole pains of being bullied and then getting shamed for what you are. It could be your size, shape, color, skin tone, hairstyle, the way you look, your name, your family name, anything. See, you could be bullied on the most random thing that you can imagine ever in your life. And getting bullied is something that has to be reported immediately, correct? So when I say two things, first, always be as a pack of wolves. A person who has a group of friends would be bullied pretty less, because the one who is bullying is not a lion, he is a fox. He'll be a loner. He'll come to attack. If you are in a pack, they'll never attack you again, because they know that if I attack one, five come back to me, correct? So this is collective strength of people that makes them stronger. And as we are younger, you only work on collective strength, correct? As you grow further, you also realize that reporting it to the authorities, like the school authorities, teachers, counselors, principal, and not expecting an immediate result, because once you complain, the bully would be called for, they'll be talked about. The bully would not respond immediately, because abhi to uska ego aapne tod diya. Now the people know around him, and then the parents would be called, and let's face it, they anyways had issues in their family, and that dysfunctional family is called, and now they are discussing his problems with them. So they are not going to take it in a healthy way. So once the complaint is done, the bully backfires with 10 times the amount of strength. And we want to see to it that you never complain, correct? But again, every time the bully strikes back, your job is to stay in groups, be very assertive, non-aggressive, not try to take a revenge. So sublimation, which means the bully brings upon any amount of pain or any amount of disgust or any amount of insult, your way should be sublimation. Oh, his words don't define me. His observation doesn't mean that I assume that personality automatically. And again, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers, talk to your counselors, talk in your family, and tell everyone, I don't want a revenge. I simply want a ventilation point, correct? Because when you ventilate, people give you some sort of solace and you feel better. So, this is how primarily managing bully helps you. The second part of the question, when you asked me about body shaming. Now, while I say that people are different sizes, shapes, colors, this is known as biodiversity, correct? So, biologically, all of us are not same. We are different. And gradually, I think that school as a curriculum is talking a lot nowadays about bullying, about body size, shape, structure, body positivity, body neutrality. But once we start the movement, it takes some time for the results to be implemented or actually observed, correct? It is important that in our groups, we accept people with every size, shape, color. We don't try to give them a label because of how they look, how they wear clothes, what sort of families they come from. So first of all, it starts from within. That I decide that I'll accept people the way they are. Then people will accept me the way I am. Because if I'm critical about everyone, look at your hairstyle, look at your body weight, look at your color, look at how you look, and then I expect that the world would be kind to me. It doesn't happen that way. So kindness comes from within, solutions come from within, problems come from outside. People would bully us, people would body shame us. And if we have good enough self-esteem, correct, which comes from stable family environment, stable concept of self, self-awareness, if you have good body image, if you have good sense of self about our own structure, our own, the way we look, it also helps us to manage the external comments towards us, correct? You have to see to it that as a routine, however the way you look, however the way you sound, you look in the mirror every day in the morning while you're getting ready and you say one positive thing about yourself, which would not be grandiose, like I am the most beautiful person on this planet. No, you don't need to say that. You just need to say, I look good, I sound good, I feel better, I dress good, correct? Now, initially it sounds pretty regressive. I am not a kid that I say this and I believe this. But the subconscious mind is a kid, technically. So repeatedly when you say the same things again and again, it forms like a core belief in the brain. The brain starts believing that because somebody is saying the same thing again and again and again, and you assume that identity. Just like when somebody shames you for what you are again and again and again, and you start doubting yourself, I might not be looking that great, I might not have dressed that well. It doesn't happen the first time, but when 10 people tell the same thing, or the same person tells it to you every day for 6 months, you automatically assume that, oh, it does mean that I'm not attractive. Similarly, if you speak certain positive things about your body, your color, the way you look, the way you sound, the way you dress, it literally changes your own perception about you. And when you have a good perception about yourself, people outside would not be able to easily shame you about it. Correct? So we have to talk about this in the family, we have to talk about this among friends, and be open about the whole idea. And then I think a decade from now would be a better place, if not the safest place for us to live. But no change would be there overnight, as we all understand.
We have our exams 4 times in a year.
Yeah.
Even if we know that these are the dates we have to study this much, we all have that I should study now, but then it's like अरे बाद में पढ़ लूँगा ना, अभी तो बहुत टाइम है. And that बहुत time is then is gradually lessened than a day. So how to manage that procrastination?
Procrastination, first of all, is usually misunderstood either as a habit, a personality trait, sometimes as a disease. But I feel that we all have to understand procrastination more than emotional state of mind. So, as we just discussed in one of the questions about a screen giving you dopamine surges, we have to understand that dopamine is a chemical of the brain which maintains the normal functioning, correct? So, when you have to perform as per a task given to you for a specific timeline, an optimal amount of dopamine in the brain is necessary, correct? That is known as a default mode activity of the brain. So, the brain is in a slumber, and then a task is given and the brain awakens to finish the task and you complete the task. But there are certain emotional states which drains that basal level of dopamine. So at this juncture, if a task is given, you would wait for the dopamine to get normal and you would say that baad mein kar lete hain, because we assume that if we do it later, the brain would be in a better state to function rather than right now. And right now, let me just avoid doing it, because if I do it now, maybe it will not be done in the best of the ways, correct? We have to also understand that if we are in such sort of low dopamine phases, let's say there are peaks of dopamine, there is normal level of dopamine, there are troughs of dopamine. So dopamine is too low. We explain people that whenever you want to come off that lows of dopamine, you have to give some sort of a challenge or pain to the body. Now pain does not mean you harm yourself physically, emotionally or mentally, correct? The Stanford protocol to awaken a dead brain or a sleepy brain, which you call as a sleeping giant, would be cold exposure technically. So they say that when you have to start up a task and you lack the basic motivation, drive, purpose, or that inner instinct to finish it, exposing yourself to something very cold like an ice bath increases the basal level of dopamine, correct? When the basal level of dopamines are higher, giving some instruction to the brain and expecting outcomes from it are easier. So, understanding that procrastination is basically because of an emotional state of low dopamine phase, the first thing is try to improve the dopamine levels. That is a neurobiological theory. The psychoanalytic theory of procrastination says that usually, when we know that the outcome is not going to be great, for example, I would be really great if I have an English exam, but I am not great if I have a social studies exam. I will be studying on the day 1 if I have a mathematics exam, but I am delaying till the end if I have a science exam. Now this means that if your brain does not like a specific topic, or you have assumed that I am not strong enough, I am not going to get appreciation out of the results of this subject, the brain would want to avoid pain. The brain works on the reward pain cycle, which means it would repeatedly want to do the things which gives it reward, it would want to avoid things which gives it pain. If the brain assumes that science exam, even if I study my best, I am barely gonna pass, and if I barely pass, either of my teachers, my colleagues, my parents are going to criticize me for my results. Now here something interesting happens. You have a thought of failure, that even if I study well, I am not gonna perform very well. Now the brain is a very interesting organ. Whenever given a thought, the brain thinks about the thoughts. So the brain starts thinking about failure and the outcomes of failure. So it automatically imagine that people are talking bad about me, they are not encouraging me anymore. Now because these outcomes give you more and more pain, the brain finds out pain किधर से आया? The science exam. So क्या नहीं करना है? पढ़ना ही नहीं है science exam. Why should I study? Because The thoughts of the thought say that science exam gives me pain. So the brain would want to delay it as much as possible. Correct? Because there is this fear that anyways I'm going to fail and the failure is going to give me lots of pain. Until a timeline comes, because you are into education system wherein, as you said, there are 4 exams every year. So eventually if you study or don't study, the school is going to take exams. They're not going to say, no, because you have not studied, we'll delay the exam by 5 months. So you know that the exam is coming. So you would anyways pick up the book on the previous day. And when you do that, there are times that if the course is lesser or if the subject was not as hard as you imagine, आप कर लोगे, you'll get marks. If you get marks, it is not the best thing to happen to you. It is the worst thing to happen to you. Because now the brain, from its learned behavior theory, Conrad Lawrence से बहुत अच्छे से दिया है. Exactly. अगर आना ही है, तो you know what, I'll delay it till the end. I am very good at science. Now the brain assumes an exactly opposite situation. I will study it in the end, and if I study it in the end, I will anyways get marks. So now the exams are announced. You will finish maths. You will avoid studying social studies. You will avoid studying science because subconscious says वैसे भी पसंद नहीं है. Fail होंगे तो anyways people are going to say bad things about me, negativity, and I will study it in the end and get through the marks. The next time you study, the last minute, you face anxiety, literally, not insecurity, no fear, anxiety, because by now the brain knows it is 10 chapters this time. I am not going to pass. And if you fail the next time, now you never want to pick up that topic. Again the same theory, the brain doesn't like pain. Correct? And now the new psychoanalytic theory or the proponents of it say that always embrace pain if you want success. And the pain again doesn't mean कि पूरी रात जगो या फिर don't go to meet friends, cut off yourself from the society, don't go to any family functions. That is not pain. Pain means doing things which you don't like. Simple. So if you assume this theory, then procrastination can be managed well. 2 things, neurobiology, psychoanalysis. Neurobiology says some sort of physical pain like a cold shower. Psychoanalysis, try and understand that why you are not doing the subject and try and break it into parts, correct? As you break it into parts, it's easier to finish the smaller task than the bigger task. So I'll study 20 minutes of social studies today. The exams are not announced. I'm just going to study 20 minutes of social studies. Doing that over a period of time, and when the exams are announced, you know that 40% of the course is over. Getting to the 60%, you won't procrastinate. Because by that time, your brain has a habit of studying that subject over a period of time. That is what changes procrastination.
So, sir, how is anxiety related to sleep? I mean, sometimes anxiety destroys the sleep cycle, and then that results in having more anxiety. So, how to manage?
That's a very nice question. I would say that we are talking about anticipatory sleep anxiety here, technically. See, I think that all our lives we have all been fooled, correct? As humans, we have always thought that sleep was the biggest enemy we had. So if there are any deadlines to follow, any exams to come, any work or projects to be finished, we never try to accommodate that in the awake part of our day. We always used to discuss with our friends that रात को जग लेंगे, काम खत्म कर लेंगे, correct? Now, this is the biggest problem that we as students and we as medical practitioners we also face, that an average teenager right now is sleeping at least 1 to 1.5 hours lesser than they are supposed to. Now, many would feel that's great, so they are working harder now and they are doing better. But the moment you are sleeping lesser, because sleep is the only superpower, sleep is the nuclear arc reactor of Tony Stark that every human has, because it gives you the only way that your brain replenishes its reserves. It is the only way that the body can relax. It is the only time when the brain and body are in connection with each other. It is the only way that your memory, because certain aspects of memory, which we call as consolidation of memory, only happen in a specific phase of sleep called REM sleep. So when you don't sleep and you go to the exam next day, you'll automatically forget many things that even though you studied a number of times in the past, but it didn't get consolidated in the brain, correct? So first of all, we have to explain everyone that sleep is the only superpower and the only hygienic thing that we all as humans do. Never attack that part of the day and try to control and finish up all your tasks in the remaining part. Again, procrastination वाले लोगों में sleep का issue सबसे ज़्यादा रहता है, because they always delay to a point that they have to eat up hours from their sleep. Now, because over a period of time we realize that sleep is so important, we start getting anxious that if I don't sleep well, then performance to a peak level would not be possible. If you ask any good athletes, you ask Usain Bolt, you ask Virat Kohli, what are their preparations on the previous day of a big match? They sleep well, correct? And we find that, wow, is that it? But that is the most important thing, because we cannot sleep well if there is an impending big performance on the next day, because it creates some sort of an anxiety. Sleep anxiety is mainly because we have not defined the bed for a specific thing. We forgot that bed was the only place to sleep. But we eat in our bed, we study in our bed, we talk about everything on phone in our bed, we fight in our bed, we do everything in our bed. And by the time we go to bed, we are confused, what was this place for? To fight sleep anxiety, first of all, we'll have to differentiate the places where we do things. And bed is only a place to sleep, because the brain forms what we call as some sorts of simulations, that looking at certain things, you have cues of what to do next. Now, while you do that, the brain, when looks at the bed, gets confused. इधर झगड़ना है आज, इधर फ़ोन पे बात करना है, खाना खाना है, पढ़ना है, because सोना तो लास्ट में, वो तो कैंसिल ही करना है. So the brain cancels sleep at that time. सोना तो नहीं है, because now it's 12 o'clock at night, I'll be finishing all my tasks on bed, but not sleep. So changing your relationship with the bed, go to the bed and only sleep there. Study on your desk, eat on your dining table, talk on a specific area, गैलरी है, घर के बाहर है, सोफे पे बैठ के, anywhere. Talk on the phone anywhere else, but not on bed, and make bed as the only area where you'll go and sleep there. So what happens, as you switch off your light, there is this secretion of melatonin in the brain. Melatonin is one of the sleep hormones of the body, and whenever melatonin levels increase, you can sleep better. When does the anxiety arise? Because you have been watching the screen for too long, and screen is a blue light. So the blue light is almost same as the UV light of the sun. So whenever there is blue light from the screen, an LED has a blue light. Whenever there is blue light from the screen, and the retina, which is the part of the eye which catches up the blue light, the retina thinks that it is still day. So it will try to avoid the melatonin secretion. It will delay the melatonin secretion. But by now you know it's 1 o'clock and you have to get up at 6 to go to school, the anxiety creeps in. So first of all, a paradigm shift in the habits of sleep hygiene. So there is this very nice sleep hygiene schedule that all of us can follow to avoid sleep related anxiety. We explain everyone that by the time it's 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, try to avoid any stimulants like energy drinks, coffee, though it should not be taken at your age. But if people are, try to avoid it after 6 p.m. in the evening. By 7 p.m. try to have your dinner. By 8 p.m. stop watching any sort of screen for any purpose, because many kids would say that we are studying on our screen, so we can study after 8 o'clock, but now we won't because the doctor has said not to use a screen. But you can shift to a pen and paper or a book, correct? So after 8 o'clock, avoid using any screens. After 9 o'clock, try to have what we call as a very small amount of nutmeg, like a pinch of it, or maybe chamomile tea, because they increase the melatonin secretion. By 10 o'clock, avoid every sort of confrontative conversations with family, friends, with your own self. And by 10:30, dim the light. The first 10 minutes, it could be semi-dim light, which means अगर ऐसा कोई लैम्प रूम में नहीं है, then keep the toilet light open, the door half closed, and train your brain in this semi-lit dim room for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then switch off the light and then go to bed. Now this is like going to bed in a routine, correct? These are simple sleep hygiene habits. In between, if you want, you can have a warm water shower, like just for a minute or two. ऐसा नहीं नहाना that the brain thinks that oh सुबह हो गई, you have to leave for work. So following these hygiene habits, avoiding the other things in the bed would make the anxiety related to sleep pretty less. Again, if you don't sleep well the night, the next day nap cannot be more than 40 minutes. Many people try to overcome their sleep debt by sleeping 2 hours, 3 hours in the afternoon. So now the brain falls into this new cycle that you will sleep in the afternoon when you come back from school, or in the evening, and then you go very late at night. Any nap beyond 45 minutes make your brain go more groggy. So see to it that a nap doesn't go beyond 45 minutes. That helps you reset the sleep cycle, and the anxiety is related to sleep.
Talking about addiction, students, especially in the teenage, are often addicted to substance use. It may be under peer pressure, or if they don't feel like talking, so they take it and they feel good, and they later on get addicted to it. So how can we stop that, or we can not let that happen?
Great, because I feel many a times people would want to talk about addiction when a teenager is too young, thinking it's too early to talk about it. I'm very happy you brought about this topic. See, any sort of a substance use is associated with a heavy pleasure immediately, heavy reward immediately. So within a few seconds or a minutes, the substance gives some sort of a feedback to the body, because of which, as per the substance, may it be a stimulant, a depressant, a hallucinogen, the brain gets some sort of effect and goes to a state wherein it shuts down all other stimulation, all other thoughts, all other negativity, and makes you go to a zone. First of all, let us understand a very clear cut thing. Anything that gives results, pleasure, reward immediately will never be good in the long term. Because any sort of a pleasure or reward is to be earned over a period and not to be get as soon as like a minutes or a few seconds. Like a good result gives us a good high. Like preparing for a marathon and finishing it. The whole preparation phase and finishing the marathon gives you a high. While in a drug gives you high immediately. A substance gives you high immediately. So it is very important, first of all, to avoid anything that gives you an high instantly. May it be a substance, may it be a behavior. So when I say behavior, I also include gaming, I also include shopping, I also include pornography, because teenagers are too much into it nowadays. I also include all sorts of screen use which gives you pleasure immediately. Now focusing specifically on a substance. The neurobiology of a substance is that teenagers are thrill-seeking human beings, because the pleasure-seeking, thrill-seeking areas of the brain start developing by the age of 11, 12, 13, 14. This is also the age when an adolescent becomes a teenager, is more open to experimentation, and an adulting phase starts, because now the teenager becomes, or at least they think that they have become adult, good enough to take their own decision, good enough to do good for themselves, make choices for themselves. And now the third thing, the peers come in. And the peers come from what we call as modeling. Modeling matlab, if you go to the recent movies or the OTT platforms, you see very widespread use of drug as if it is normalized. Now teenage brain, because it is thrill seeking, because it is novelty seeking, it is pleasure seeking, it would want to mimic what they have just seen. But the decision making area of the brain develops by the age of 22 to 26, correct? That is too late, and we would really curse Mother Nature that why did you give us everything by the time we were 13 to 18 so that we make mistakes, and by the time we realize it we are 22 to 26. But there is a catch to this as well, because the decision making areas are not very well developed. Teens fall into such things because they are influenced very easily. This is also the age of getting influenced very easily, because again the decision making areas are not very well developed. And when a substance comes in and that immediate rush of the substance peaks, we automatically feel that this is how life has to be. Why should I work harder? Why should I give in more when so much amount of pleasure is so easily available? And we will take the substance for a period of time. So people take substance for recreation, for thrill, some take it for performance enhancement. Nowadays I get lots of 15, 17, 18-year-olds to come to me because they are hooked onto stimulants, because they think that they improve their focus, concentration, they are able to give better exams, vivas with better confidence, which was not possible earlier. But again the same thing, people who prepare under the influence of a drug can only perform under the influence of drug. So the moment the drug is taken back, like if it is withdrawn, suddenly they are like they know nothing in an exam, they are not able to perform, because the brain did not literally develop muscles to lift the load of your studies. The brain was like on a steroid. Like if a person takes steroid in a gym and develops some sorts of big muscles, they are not strong or powerful, they are simply bulky. Brain on drugs is like a gym body on steroids. So the moment the steroids are gone, the person becomes slim again. The moment the drug is gone, the person cannot perform anymore. So a drug for performance enhancement is the biggest myth. A drug for a thrill or fun, because the moment you take any drug, it literally burns the neurons of the brain. Neurons are the cells of the brain. Now because when you are young, you have billions of neurons. Missing them out would not look like a big deal. But by the time you're 20, 25, 30, this constant degeneration of neurons reframes the circuits of the brain. Now the brain is connected to different areas inside, and those connections are spoiled forever. So when they say that once a druggie, always a druggie, not true. But yeah, their circuits of the brain are programmed forever. If nicotine, one of the most simple substance, is consumed before the age of 15, nicotine can literally change the organization of mRNA of your brain, which means it causes genetic modifications into the brain. If a stimulant comes up, any stimulant like an MD, a mephedrone, a cocaine, by the time a person is 18 and had been exposed to nicotine, it causes their progeny, which means unke upcoming generations also have addiction potential towards nicotine and cocaine for generations and generations to come. A small pinch of drug along with any fun comes with lots of permanent changes to your body. So when people say, can we use it for recreational purpose? What is a recreational purpose? It's a very big question. Because if you cannot enjoy your life without a drug, I'm not sure what sort of life you're living, because you are so much messed up that shutting off your brain with a drug is the only way you can enjoy life. And living with all the negativities, all the thoughts, all the problems is not possible for you. Lately, because the society is becoming too demanding, the world is very competitive, and people try to peak perform with minimal preparation, with lots of procrastination, by staying awake at nights. They want some quick fun. They want to come out of their things very fast, and that is how teenagers are getting more and more towards drug. And it's a very dangerous scenario. I feel that a decade from now we'll see a generation of purposeless people who only know how to get fun, and that is how the whole concept that AI, would it replace mankind? Yeah. For all those brains which were high on drugs and their bodies are on steroids, they have to be replaced someday. And it would be necessary, because such dysfunctional brains would not be able to handle the pressures of the society or take it further on, and that is where an AI would be a more viable thing. For all those brains would literally develop each of their mental muscle to get a stronger brain, have more resilience, to be optimistic, positive, good self-esteem, gather knowledge, information, use pressure in a positive way to create better environments around. In short, they will be optimal mentally, emotionally, physically. Such brains and bodies would never be replaced by any computers, would never be replaced by any sort of AI. So I think that in this race to reach at the top, or to be the coolest person in the school or college, or to look or assume the most powerful position, a drug would never take us anywhere. We do lots of drug awareness campaigns in schools. We try to explain them that how it would be introduced to you, how you would be encouraged to do more and more of it. But don't believe what people say about it. Don't believe the internet blogs, because let's be very fair, internet is a very biased place. You get articles and blogs and what you search on. So when many youngsters tell me that but marijuana is legal in Canada, it is legal in America, I said it is legal, it is not compulsory. That now you are 14, if you don't smoke a joint, we'll remove you from the country. So legal is different from what is advisable. Yes. There are many things legal. DDT is legal, arsenic is legal, but you don't consume it every day, correct? So that would be one of the most lame reasons. Many say that, you know what, in Indian mythology, even Shankar Bhagwan used to consume it. And I said, you're not Shankar Bhagwan in the first place. Second, you don't know why and how he consumed it. There are many fables and tales about it, but it's not true that he was always high on cannabis. That is the worst thing that anybody can say about a god or about any mythological or any historical perspective of Indian culture. Not true. So just to justify yourself, you cannot use references from very, discrete ways to rationalize what you are doing. Nothing about the drug that you know is true. So it's time to talk more about it. It's time to be more open about it. If somebody in the school, if somebody in the family or neighborhood consumes it, don't isolate them more, because maybe they're using it out of isolation. So talk to them more. Try to include them more among groups. Talk to the school teachers, the counselors. I think they'll be able to, in a more psychological intervention way, help you.
It is also observed that in families, most of the elders, like they often use that packets like masala wo khate, they eat that masala, and then when it is over or when it is empty, they advise their children कि जाके लेके आना, वहीं पे मिलता है. And then when children often उनको लगता है if he can eat, then I can also eat, it might be allowed. How can we stop that?
That's so true. I feel a very big problem of the whole Indian culture system is we all feel that tobacco is not a substance in the first place, and consuming tobacco is not bad. We forget that it is the same tobacco which is also present in cigarettes and BDs. So when people, you said very specifically packet, and I really appreciate that question because I see so many young people at a pan parlor, and when we question them, because I worked with the NCB for some time, and we used to go and stand on different pan parlors to understand the psychological perspective. And 40% of youngsters were like, I'm really not consuming it. It is for my father, my uncle, my elder brother, and that pains us basically. So when a younger brain is exposed to certain things which are harmful in a very neutral way, for example, tobacco is harmful, but you are exposed to it of going to that pan parlor, that taboo or stigma is removed. And most of the times when they go there, where first of all they are said no, then they make a phone call to their parent. And the parent says, yes, it is for me, you can give it to him or her. Now, over a period of time, you never know that when and how the child was also consuming the substance, the tobacco, out of knowledge of the people because they had access to it. Any sort of a supply always increases the demand in an individual. So whenever supply of such things is higher among teenagers, their demands would automatically go higher. First. Second, modeling principle of addiction, which says that when you see someone doing something repeatedly and they get pleasure out of it, you would want to mimic that. So when they see that my parent or sibling is stressed and they had tobacco and they were out of it. They were lacking focus and they had to do some brainstorming, they had tobacco and they came out of it. So they start feeling that a tobacco is a solution to many problems that they have. And then many a times the way it is asked, अभी मेरा दिमाग बहुत गर्म है, एक पैकेट लेके आओ. So they realize that, oh, जब दिमाग गर्म है, then consuming something from this packet would make me feel better. And the worst of it all, a 14-15-year-old would say their parent, can I have it? And the parent says, अभी तो छोटा है. Now the brain realizes that the moment I am adult, this is the first thing I am doing. कितना मजा होगा. That everybody who is an adult around me is doing it. So now you are having this sort of anticipation in the brain that I want to be an adult. And such a kid, when faces some sorts of problems, would want to show that I am an adult. So that kid starts eating tobacco to show to the world that I am an adult now. Because I can consume tobacco, it automatically means that I am an adult. I think, first of all, priming everyone that tobacco is the most harmful substance. Did you know? Nicotine is 1,000 times more addictive than cocaine, which means if a person consumes nicotine for the first time in any form, which is chewed form, tobacco, which is that is smokeless form, then we have smoked forms, which is a hookah, a cigar, a cigarette, and a bidi, which is a smoke form of tobacco. If a person consumes nicotine for the first time versus a person consumes heroin or cocaine for the first time, there are 1,000% more chances that they'll be addicted to nicotine as compared to a cocaine. And we are more worried about cocaine or heroin. So it is very important for all of us to realize that nicotine is one of the most, if not the most, addictive substance on the planet. And that is how every crossroads would have at least 5 pan parlors in any city that you go. If you go to some interior parts of Gujarat, not consuming tobacco is a taboo. Tobacco भी नहीं खाते हो, तुम करते क्या हो लाइफ में? मज़ा क्या है लाइफ में? And then people are in this pressure, okay, मज़ा लाने के लिए खाना ही पड़ेगा. So I think that the whole priming of the culture has to change in the first place. That parents stop asking for certain things from their children, because while chewing a tobacco, if a father says that you should not chew tobacco, the son is never going to listen to that. And that is how most of the advertisements, if you see a tobacco packet, a cigarette packet, the government in 2014, after lots of iteration from the Indian Psychiatric Society, decided that we'll put 80% of any picture on the tobacco packet as a cancer का वो. And the human brain works in a very complicated way. We think that मैंने 10 बार खाया मुझे नहीं हुआ तो मुझे नहीं होगा, because the chances of cancer from tobacco are 6 to 7%, which means 95% of people are not having cancer out of tobacco, but 100% are having fun out of tobacco. So why not follow the fun principle? Because everybody enjoys it, 5% have cancer. So I think it's time to propagate that tobacco or nicotine is a disease, rather than nicotine consumption causes disease. Because it causes disease in few people, while consuming nicotine or tobacco itself is a disease in all of them who consume it. So if we project that on the paper कि nicotine खाना ही एक मानसिक बीमारी है, would be better than nicotine consumption causes cancer. So the moment this is done, I think the tobacco industry will stop, and I'm worried where the government will get its revenues from. So we know it's never happening.
And sir, sometimes, especially when you are a teenager, when you lock the room, or even if you stay more in the room than with the family or in the hall, your parents get that feeling that ये रूम में ऐसा क्या कर रही है जो हमें नहीं पता है. So she or he should always keep the room open and stay नीचे ही. या तो you don't go to your room unless you want to change your clothes or you want to bring something which is in your room to sleep, change, or if you have something there then you go. But tell us and go, and what is it about? They always keep nagging you कि तुम room में मत जाओ or you don't lock the room. So how to deal with that? Or
That's pretty interesting, very personal to me as well, because I think I faced that most of my teenage life. I think that as Indians, we are brought up in a culture where openness among the families and especially sex education is very poor in the first place. We forget that whenever a child grows of enough age, they are separated from the parents to sleep alone in the room. And whenever a child grows beyond that age, a personal space is a right, first of all. Because if you're not giving a personal space to a child, the child will seek that personal space elsewhere. And that is even more risky, dangerous and difficult. Because if you're trying to seek your personal space beyond the boundaries of your house, you end up into more dangerous, risky situations, and we see lots of child molestation, lots of perpetrators trying to take advantage of all of this. So first of all, it is a part of parental education that beyond an age, every child deserves to own their personal space. Now it is also important for the child to understand that the space that they are given is more out of their authority and right, correct? And a sort of, let's say, responsibility. So personal space has to be the most precious thing that you've ever earned in your life. Misusing it would warrant for you to lose it forever. Let's be very fair. अगर मैं job में अच्छा काम कर रहा हूँ, they'll promote me. If they promote me and I mess up the job, they're gonna anyways be removing me from there. So let us say that getting your own room is like a perk of your job of being a child to a parent. कि इसमें अपने को appreciation मिला, and that appreciation will have to be managed. 2-3 things that we need to be careful about. Whenever we are finding that spaces that we get are not private enough, it is important that we communicate with the parents that what is the private space needed for, what will be the use of this private space. Let us not forget that in teenage, by the time you're 12, 13, the hormones are at its peak. The body chemistry is at its peak. The brain neurochemistry is at its peak. So you have all sorts of ideas, and the brain is most open to exploration in this age. You would want to explore everything, right from internet to phone to your own body parts to knowing what people of your age group are doing, and it is not wrong, correct? Because when you explore what you have, then only you would realize what is good or bad for you. Again, exploration is a very broad process, and none of the exploration means either negative or positive. It is a human right to explore things. If I am in this room, I would want to explore the lights, I would want to explore the things lying around me, and there is nothing wrong about it. Nobody can stop me from exploring it. Then why do we stop each other from exploring our own lives, our emotions, our mental health, our body, everything? I feel that the biggest problem that we face is parents want authority over a child, and over a period of time the child seeks autonomy, which means my life, my rules, I live the way I want. And in this fight, the child assumes that the room is my kingdom which I have conquered and nobody can enter inside, and the moment they enter inside, I'll bash them out, that how did you enter my territory? And the parents feel that we have given them the luxury of their rooms, so whenever we want to infringe inside, we can. So whenever this ego battle happens of authority versus autonomy, the child would want to recede to their rooms, the parent would want to push on their Alexander the Great बनते will conquer everything again and take their kingdom back away from them. This is a very menial fight if you ask me. ये fight, it goes nowhere. Eventually, you would have your own room, your own private life, your own families, everything, and everything would not be expressed to everyone around you. That is very open. So it would be good that we discuss the boundaries of what is allowed in your room, up to what age, what are the new things that you're trying to explore in your room, because again, it's a phase of experimentation, thrill seeking, pleasure seeking. You would end up doing things which are not great for you, but for that you need to have the courage and the openness to talk. Even if I've done wrong, I'll talk to a parent. Even if I've done something which is great, I'll talk to a parent. And parents might be primed that pehle suno, because Indian parents are the best advisors in this world. They have solutions to all problems of their kids, and whenever a teenager sees that their parents have solutions, they'll stop talking to them, because you don't want solutions at this age. You want people who can listen to you. So if the parents listen to you, that would make things easier for you. Because when someone advises you, they are not friendly. They are in a higher position than you. That is why they are advising. A friendly person listens and would say, मुझे भी पता नहीं इसका क्या किया जाए. It's like if I talk to a psychiatrist about a case and then they say that you should give this medicine and not that, I'll stop discussing the case. It's the same what I was treating. If he says, you know what, I get such sorts of patients and I'm not able to deal with them at times, I want to talk more about my problems with him or her, that you know what, I get some really difficult things to handle in my practice. Now that makes me open to them and I solve my own problems. So when we open up, we realize that everybody out there is facing same sorts of problems. So rather than parents saying, हमें ये नहीं मिलता था पर आपको मिलता है इसलिए करो, इट्स टाइम पेरेंट्स से हमने भी ये फेस किया, हमारे पास सॉल्यूशन तब नहीं था, अभी है. So having a solution at the age of 38 is right. I never had a solution to my problems at the age of 13, 14, 15. So you're not supposed to have a solution with you. And I need to talk to you at your age. You know what, at 13 I did not know what to do about it. At 14 I did not know what to do about it. And then you feel open to talk to me. Okay, he's a nice guy to talk to. Because if I say, oh, is this it? Yeah, it's exam stress. Come on, exam is just, nothing. But my exams, oh, I was too stressed out. I'll not lie. I was always stressed out in an exam. I always feared some sort of failure. I was always scared to perform in the right way or get some specific sorts of marks. So if I tell that to you, that you know what, I have not been great as exams, but because I'm a psychiatrist, I deal with this. Now it's very easy to do that. That space belongs to a child, a teenager. The child has earned the right to it. And let's not forget that job में भी appreciation चला जा सकता है if you're not performing to that level. So room भी जा सकता है. So rather than fight of territory, formulate boundaries that this room is a boundary. Allow easy access to parents, because many times I see that children don't want the parents to clean the room, enter inside, and this is very secretive. And I understand that there are many things happening in your brain, in your body, in your life, in your emotions which you want to keep secret to, because you are not sure whether expressing them makes people think that you are weak or you are stronger. But trust me, expression is the only form of strength that we as humans have. So while you are inside, the more exclusive, the more secretive you are, there will be this fight. Open the room, don't lock it, come out. The more open you are, you can enter, just knock and come inside. So I encourage parents and children, don't lock and still knock. Which means the child would not lock the room, but the parent still knocks the room and waits for a yes from the child. And that is accepting the privacy or the stature that the child has gained. So I still remember, working as an employee somewhere is like anybody enters my office anytime, and then as the boss, people knock, correct? So if you have earned that boss status of having a room, people knock. And here parents would have to leave that ego that why should I enter my child's room knocking, or you would have to leave that secrecy that, oh, you know what, for 4 hours nobody enters in my room. It's okay. The house belongs to everyone. Every area of the house belongs to everyone. They can knock. Come in. So don't lock, just knock. I think that the room problem can be solved pretty easily.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions that I had. And I will try and reflect all those answers and in real life circumstances and tell you about the results.
Thank you so much, Navya. I'm so happy you have been the youngest host I've ever faced, the hardest host to face, because the questions were super, to the point. Your discussion was amazing, and I'm also thankful to Udgam School, the authorities, all the management who always pop up some really great ideas to promote mental health, to make children more aware about their own emotions, their selves, talking to parents. I'm really happy that the crusade that we as psychiatrists at some juncture had started to propagate things about mental health. And Udgam has always been a pioneer in picking up new and great things. So thank you, Navya. It was great talking to you. Thanks a lot.